Hey guys, tonight we are going to slip back in time, not to witness a grand battle or a royal coronation, but to sit in a cold, quiet room where a terrible decision is about to be made. It throws your shadow, a towering, hunched giant, against a wall of precariously stacked manuscripts. Outside, the world is ending in a symphony of coughs and rattling death carts. The year is 1348, and the great mortality is emptying the city of Florence, street by street, house by house. You press your fingertips against the cold, sweating stone of your window casement, the one you've stuffed with vinegar-soaked rags to keep out the miasma, the corrupted air that the physicians insist carries the pestilence. It's a theory, of course. The best one they have. Their other advice, to carry a pocketful of posies, seems about as useful as trying to stop a flood with a single brick. A grim joke, considering the deluge of death outside. We going to walk in the shoes of someone so terrified of death that they willing to pay any price to escape it. A price that echoes through centuries of silence and sorrow. You'll feel the chill of the stone walls, smell the fear-scented herbs, and watch through their eyes as the world they know dissolves like salt in water. It's a story about a pact, a promise of eternal life that turns out to be an eternal prison. Honestly, you probably won't survive this. At least, not with your cozy, mortal perspective intact. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And for a bit of fun, post your city or country and the local time in the comments below. It's always amazing to see where everyone is listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The flame of the tallow candle sputters, a tiny defiant sun in the universe of your cramped scriptorium. You are a man of letters, a scholar of Greek and Latin, a student of the natural world. Your shelves groan under the weight of Galen, of Hippocrates, of Aristotle. You have read them all, your Latin smooth and your Greek passable. And what have you learned? You've learned 100 ways to describe the liver, the philosophies of the four humors, and the proper way to catalog plant life. But not a single one of them, not one of these great minds from antiquity, has offered a single effective sentence on how not to die. How not to have your lymph nodes swell into black, agonizing buboes. How not to watch your own skin necrotize while you are still breathing. The fear is a physical thing inside you. It's a cold knot in your stomach that no amount of watered wine can loosen. It's a tremor in your hand that makes your quill scratch and blot the expensive parchment. Every day, you listen to the bells. Not the cheerful ringing that calls the faithful to Mass, but the slow, heavy tolling of the death knell, one for each soul carted off to the plague pits outside the city walls. Sometimes they ring so often, they simply blur into a constant, droning funeral dirge for humanity itself. You haven't stepped outside in a month. Your servant, a good man named Piero, leaves food at the bottom of the stairs and scurries away. You haven't seen his face in weeks, and every day you dread the silence that would mean he, too, has fallen. This isn't just about surviving the plague anymore. That's what started it, this quest. But as you've sat here, in this self-imposed prison, surrounded by the wisdom of the ages proving utterly useless, the fear has metastasized. It has grown from a simple fear of sickness into a profound philosophical terror of cessation, of the end, of the black, silent nothingness that awaits prince and pauper alike. Why go to all the trouble of learning, of feeling, of being, only for it to be extinguished like a candle in a breeze? It seems like a cosmic prank of the highest order. You turn from the window, back to your desk. The traditional paths have failed you. Medicine is a guessing game. Faith, for many, is a comfort. But you see the flagellants in the streets, whipping themselves to bloody ribbons to appease a silent God, and you see no divine intervention. You've pushed Galen aside for Geber, the Latinized name for the great Arab alchemist, Jabir ibn Hayyan. You've begun to collect strange, esoteric texts, bought at exorbitant prices from shadowy dealers who smell your desperation like shark-scent blood. Treatises on the distillation of metals, on the search for the prima materia, the first matter from which all things are made. And whispered within these texts, between the lines on how to transmute lead into gold, is the true prize, the panacea, the elixir of life, immortality. Not just a long life, but a life that does not end, ever. You've read so many of these convoluted texts that your eyes have started to cross a condition which, you tell yourself with a humor as dry as old bones, probably just makes you look more distinguished to the mice sharing your solitude. To cheat death itself. That has become the new goal. A permanent solution to a permanent problem. The thought is so audacious, so blasphemous, it thrills you even as it terrifies you. You are no longer just a scholar. You are a conspirator, plotting a coup against God and nature. And you are just getting started. Historians still argue whether the most profound casualty of the Black Death was the loss of life or the catastrophic loss of faith in the institutions that had governed medieval life for centuries. For you, it is both. You have lost faith in God, in medicine, and in the very idea that life is meant to be a fleeting gift. Your obsession has taken you down darker, more secluded alleyways of knowledge. This new, feverish research has yielded a library of disappointment. The alchemical texts you've acquired are maddeningly vague, filled with allegories about green lions devouring the sun and philosophical kings wedding their sisters. It feels less like a scientific pursuit and more like trying to decipher the transcript of some sort of avant-garde poetry slam. You've successfully distilled foul-smelling liquids and created powders that do little more than stain your fingers. But the grand secret, the elixir, remains stubbornly locked behind layers of metaphor. Your hope, once a roaring fire, is banking low, threatening to become just another pile of cold ash. Your last acquisition sits in the corner of the room, a large wooden crate you bought from a desperate merchant, selling off the entire estate of a fellow scholar one, Niccolò de Vieri, whose household was silenced by the plague 2 weeks ago. But your fingers catch on something. The bottom of the crate isn't flush. You press down, and a section of the wood gives way with a soft click. A false bottom. Your heart, which had been beating with the slow, tired rhythm of despair, gives a sudden, violent lurch. It hammers against your ribs like a prisoner rattling the bars of its cage. With trembling hands, you lift the panel. There, nestled in a bed of faded black velvet, is a single volume. You bought it sight unseen, hoping Vieri's collection of medical treatises might hold some obscure secret from the Islamic Golden Age or a forgotten Roman physician. So far, it has been a bust. Just more copies of Galen, another Avicenna, texts you already own. You approach the crate with a sigh, ready to use its contents for firewood. A practical, if morbid, recycling program. You pry the last few books out, their vellum pages brittle and smelling of dust and finality. It is unlike any book you have ever seen. It's not large, about the size of a book of hours, but it feels impossibly heavy in your hands, dense with secrets. The cover is bound in black leather, smooth and supple, with no tooling, no title, no ornamentation of any kind. It is a void, a rectangle of pure darkness. The very sight of it feels like a sin. You carry it to your desk and place it in the small pool of flickering candlelight. The pages are not parchment or vellum. They are made of something else, thin and unnervingly resilient, with a pale, creamy texture. The edges are gilded, not with gold, but with a metal that seems to drink the light, a dull, silvery black. You open it. There is no title page, no author's dedication. It simply begins. The script is a precise, spidery hand, written in a language you almost recognize, but can't quite place. It has the echoes of Aramaic, hints of Greek, but follows a syntax that is utterly alien. More unnerving, however, are the diagrams. They are drawn with an anatomist's precision, but they do not depict the things of this world. There are constellations that do not hang in your night sky, dissections of creatures that crawl from the deepest nightmares, and geometric patterns that seem to shift and writhe on the page if you stare too long. The ink is a deep, rich crimson, and you know instinctively it's not the common iron gall ink. It is likely dragon's blood, a rare and costly resin that folk tradition claims has magical properties. A quirky but expensive choice for an author. Many of the grimoires you've heard of, like the infamous Tea of Solomon, were attributed to great historical figures to lend them an air of authority. It's a common trick, a way to sell blasphemy by wrapping it in a cloak of revered history. But this book claims no such lineage. It feels older, more honest in its terrible purpose. There is no pretense here, no hiding. Historians still argue whether the authors of such grimoires genuinely believed in their own magical systems, or were simply cunning charlatans exploiting the fears of a desperate populace. Looking at this book, you have no doubt. Whoever wrote this believed every single word. Your scholarly mind, the part of you trained to question and analyze, screams at you to burn it. This is heresy. This is the kind of forbidden knowledge that the Inquisition builds pyres for. But the other part of you, the terrified man who listens to the death carts, is captivated. You spend the next several hours, and then the entire night, cross-referencing the strange symbols with your other esoteric texts. It's a maddening puzzle, as if the author intentionally avoided any common frame of reference. It's missing a user-friendly index, that's for sure. But slowly, painstakingly, you begin to break the code. And what you find makes the blood drain from your face. This is not a book of simple alchemy. It does not speak of transmuting lead or curing gout. It is a detailed step-by-step instructional manual. Its subject is the severing of a soul from the cycle of life and death. It describes a ritual, a pact to be made not with God or a demon. It uses a different word, an older word, for an entity that exists outside of such crude classifications. It speaks of a sleeper in the static, an anchor of ages. And it promises not just a long life, but true, unending, unassailable immortality. An existence frozen at a single point, immune to decay, disease, and the passage of time itself. The price is not your soul, not in the way the priests describe it. The book is very clear on that. The price is something far more fundamental. As the sun begins to rise, casting a sickly gray light into your room, you know, you've found it. The answer, the poison, the cure, and you know, with a certainty that chills you to the bone, that you are going to do exactly what it says. The grimoire is not a cookbook for a simple meal. It's a logistical nightmare. The ritual it describes requires a list of components so specific and so obscure that it feels like a deliberate test of your resolve. Simple enough, you think, until you realize you can't just go asking around. Pardon me, sir? Has your home recently been smote by God? I'd like a souvenir. The Black Death has people on edge, and a man asking strange questions is liable to be accused of well poisoning or witchcraft. You spend weeks watching the sky during thunderstorms, your heart leaping with a strange, predatory excitement at every flash. Finally, one tempestuous night, a bolt shatters the steeple of a small, abandoned church on the outskirts of the city. The next morning, under the guise of a pious man assessing the damage, you pocket a jagged piece of granite, still smelling faintly of ozone and burnt faith. This I send to your quick trip to the apothecary for some dried herbs and a bit of mercury. You begin to haunt the city's graveyards, not the fresh, sprawling plague pits, but the older, more established cemeteries. You feel like a ghoul, a voyeur of grief. You watch somber figures come and go, but the specific conditions are never met. The sun is too high. The mourner is a son or a sister, not a widow. You are about to give up when you see her. An old woman, her face a roadmap of sorrow, weeping silently over a weathered stone marker as the first rays of sun cut through the morning mist. You wait until she leaves, then approach the grave. A single, perfect drop of moisture glistens on the carved name. Using a silver spoon, as the grimoire instructs, you carefully scoop up the tear, trapping it in a small glass vial. You don't look at the name on the headstone. It's better not to know. This is a scavenger hunt designed by a madman. For the next 6 months, the book becomes your entire world. You eat your stale bread with one hand, turning its unnerving pages with the other. The city outside remains a landscape of fear, but your focus has narrowed to a pinpoint. You have a purpose beyond mere survival. You have a shopping list. First on the list, a shard of stone from a building struck by lightning. Next, the grimoire demands the tear of a widow shed at dawn on the grave of her first love. This one feels particularly cruel. The list grows more bizarre. The final breath of a condemned man captured in a lamb's bladder. This requires bribing a thoroughly unimpressed executioner, a man whose casual brutality is far more chilling than any monster in the grimoire. He looks at you with dead eyes, takes your silver, and hands you the grisly artifact after a hanging in the piazza, muttering something about morbid curiosity. You stash it away, trying not to think about the life that ended in that small, deflating sack. Historians still argue whether the high frequency of public executions in the medieval period served as a genuine deterrent or simply desensitized the populace to violence. From your perspective, it just made getting grotesque ritual components surprisingly convenient. Then there are the alchemical ingredients, the ones that sound more familiar but are no less difficult to acquire. Pure antimony, known as the Grey Wolf by alchemists because of its ability to consume other metals. You have to melt it down from stibnite ore, a process that fills your scriptorium with the toxic, garlic-like stench of sulfur. You need a perfect lodestone, a naturally magnetized piece of magnetite, which you eventually buy from a sea captain who swears it can guide a ship through the thickest fog. He also tries to sell you on the supposed health benefits of wearing a lodestone, a common folk belief at the time. You just nod and pay the man, resisting the urge to tell him you have slightly grander ambitions for it than curing your rheumatism. The strangest ingredient, the one that makes your skin crawl, is the blood of a silent watcher. The grimoire's accompanying diagram is a crude but unmistakable drawing of a barn owl. Jars of strange powders sit next to vials of ominous liquids. The desiccated lamb's bladder hangs from a hook next to the lightning-charged stone. You've become a recluse, a ghost in your own home. Piero now leaves your food and scurries away without a word, likely convinced you've gone completely mad. Maybe you have. But as you look at your collection, the final component acquired, a strange sense of calm settles over you. The fear is gone, replaced by a cold, thrilling certainty. The scavenger hunt is over. The only thing left is to follow the recipe. For 2 weeks you hunt in the woods at night, a clumsy scholar trying to be a predator. You feel foolish and conspicuous. You finally find one, not in the woods, but roosting in the bell tower of the very church whose steeple was struck by lightning. It watches you with huge, black, intelligent eyes as you climb the rickety ladder. You feel a pang of guilt. This beautiful creature, a symbol of wisdom in one culture, a harbinger of doom in another, is about to become a reagent in your unholy experiment. Using a small, sharpened lancet, you make a tiny prick on its leg. The owl barely flinches. It continues to stare, unblinking, as you collect the required few drops of dark blood in a tiny clay pot. It feels less like you've taken its blood and more like it has given it to you, an offering. The thought is deeply unsettling. As the weeks turn into months, your scriptorium transforms from a place of learning into a witch's pantry. The grimoire specifies a date. Not just any night will do. It must be the autumnal equinox, a time of balance, when day and night are of equal length across the globe. The Etruscans, as you know from your studies of Herodotus, were a mysterious people whose language and origins were debated even in ancient times. They were masters of divination, reading omens in lightning strikes and the entrails of sheep, a fitting stage for your own blasphemous prophecy. Historians still argue whether the Romans culturally assimilated the Etruscans or systematically erased them. Standing here, in the quiet decay, it feels like both are true. The place is saturated with a profound and ancient silence. A moment of celestial equilibrium for a ritual that will create the ultimate imbalance. You have 2 weeks to prepare. This is not the time for a last-minute cram session. The instructions for the ritual space itself are as precise as the list of ingredients. You must find a place where the earth's memory runs deep. A crossroads is traditional for such dark dealings, but the book is more poetic and more demanding. It suggests a pre-Roman ruin, a place of forgotten gods. You find it a half-day's journey from Florence, the crumbling foundations of an old Etruscan temple, hidden in a thick grove of cypress trees. On the appointed day, you pack your satchel with the grim harvest of the past 6 months. The journey is a blur. The fear you thought you had conquered returns, not the sharp panic of the plague, but a deep, existential dread that settles in your bones. It's one thing to collect ingredients in a mad fit of obsession. It's another to stand on the threshold, ready to take the final, irrevocable step. There's no undo button on this particular procedure. As you walk, the setting sun bleeds across the sky in hues of orange and violet, the crimson equinox, the name the grimoire gives to the ritual. It's fittingly dramatic. You arrive as the last light of day fails. The air in the cypress grove is cool and still, heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth. The owl's blood to the west, for the wisdom of the night. The widow's tear to the south, for the weight of memory. The lodestone to the north, to act as an anchor. In the very center, you place a silver bowl. Into it, you pour a mixture of wine and distilled antimony. Then, with a shaking hand, you open the lamb's bladder, and the captured breath of the executed man escapes with a faint, almost inaudible sigh into the liquid. It feels obscene, a mockery of life itself. In the center of the ruins, you unroll a large piece of canvas, upon which you have painstakingly drawn the ritual circle from the book. The grimoire is very clear, just enough to awaken the pact, not enough to signal a sacrifice. You prick your thumb with the same lancet you used on the owl. 3 drops fall into the silver bowl. The liquid hisses, and a faint phosphorescent green vapor rises, smelling of ozone and something else. Something metallic and ancient, like a tomb opened for the first time in millennia. It's not a simple pentagram. It's a dizzying array of concentric circles, interwoven with the alien sigils and geometric patterns from the grimoire. It took you a week to copy it perfectly, your hand cramping, your mind reeling from the unnatural shapes. You place the components at specific cardinal points within the diagram. The lightning-charred stone to the east for beginnings. The final step is the catalyst, your own blood. Now you must wait, and you must speak the incantation. It's a long, guttural chant in the book's unearthly language. You've practiced it for weeks, the harsh syllables feeling like stones in your mouth. You begin to recite it, your voice sounding small and thin against the immense silence of the ruins. The words are a key, turning a lock in a door you cannot see. As you chant, the air grows colder. The faint starlight seems to dim, as if something is drawing the light into itself. A pressure builds in your ears, a low hum that vibrates deep in your chest. You've read fringe accounts of ley lines, theoretical alignments of ancient sites that are said to channel telluric energy. This place feels like a superhighway for whatever that energy is, and you've just caused a major traffic jam. You finish the last word of the incantation, and the world goes utterly, profoundly silent. The crickets stop. The wind dies. The humming ceases. There is only you and the faintly glowing bowl. Doubt creeps in. Did it work? Did you just spend 6 months of your life on some elaborate, morbid piece of theater? You feel a fool. It's a shift in the quality of the darkness, a thickening of the shadows at the edge of the ruin. You see no form, no shape, but you feel a mind. It is vast, ancient, and utterly indifferent. It does not feel evil or good. It feels like a mountain or the ocean, a colossal, timeless thing that has been awakened from a long, deep slumber. Its attention focuses on you, a weight of observation so immense it threatens to crush your sanity. A voice speaks, not in your ears, but directly inside your skull. It is not made of sound, but of pure comprehension. Then you feel it, a presence. It is not a burst of fire or a clap of thunder. It is a slow, creeping awareness that you are no longer alone. It is done. The voice is flat, devoid of emotion. It is the sound of a contract being stamped. The pact is sealed. Your flame is frozen. IT will not grow. IT will not fade. You will persist as you are. Now, until the stars grow cold. Then, as suddenly as it arrived, the presence is gone. The pressure lifts. The crickets start their chirping again, tentatively at first, then with their usual ignorant vigor. The air is just air once more. You are alone, trembling uncontrollably, kneeling in a pile of old rocks. You look down at your hands. They look the same. You feel the same. The same tired, terrified scholar. You touch the wound on your thumb. It's a small, clean cut, still beaded with a drop of fresh, red blood. Nothing has changed. A wave of despair washes over you. It was all for nothing. All of it, a hallucination brought on by fear and bad wine. You want to weep, to scream, but you are too exhausted, too empty. Slowly, stiffly, you stand up, blow out the vapor from the bowl, and begin the long walk home, a fool returning from his folly. You stumble back into Florence as the city is stirring to life. The sky is a pale, indifferent gray. The journey home was a fugue state of shame and exhaustion. You didn't sleep. You just walked, the mocking silence of the Etruscan ruins echoing. In your mind, the pact, the voice, the grand promises. It all feels like a dream now, a fever-induced delusion, born from too many sleepless nights and too much forbidden literature. What a colossal idiot you've been. You could have been caught, tried for heresy, and at the very end you were so desperate to avoid. All for a ghost story you told yourself in the woods. You climbed the stairs to your scriptorium, your legs aching, your spirit hollowed out. The room is just as you left it, a chaotic mess of books and alchemical junk. It looks pathetic now, not like a scholar's sanctum, but like the den of a madman. You collapse onto your cot, not bothering to remove your dusty boots, and fall into a deep, dreamless sleep, the first truly empty sleep you've had in a year. You expect to wake to the same familiar fear, the same anxious listening for the death carts. But when you wake, something is different. The afternoon sun is streaming through the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The first thing you notice is a profound sense of quiet, not in the room, but inside you. The knot of fear that has lived in your stomach for so long is gone. Not just lessened, but completely absent. You feel a calm you cannot ever remember feeling. You sit up, feeling strangely refreshed. Your body doesn't ache. Your mind is clear, sharp. You feel good. Better than good. You feel perfect. You dismiss it as the result of a long restorative sleep. You go about your day, cleaning the scriptorium, putting the grimoire back in its false-bottomed box. You feel a bit like you're cleaning up after a particularly wild party you'd rather forget. You even manage a small, dark joke to yourself about the whole affair, something about your new career as a party planner for ancient, unspeakable entities. But the feeling of well-being persists. It's not a manic energy, but a steady, unshakable foundation of vitality. You look at your hands. They appear the same. But then you look closer. At your thumb. The small cut you made with the lancet. It's gone. Not healed, not scabbed over. It is simply gone. There is no trace of it, no scar, not even a faint pink line. It's as if it never happened. A cold thrill, the first whisper of a terrifying possibility, runs up your spine. You find the lancet, your hand shaking slightly. You hesitate for only a moment before deliberately, carefully, drawing the sharp point across the back of your other hand. A thin red line wells up. You watch, mesmerized. The blood does not drip. It sits there, a perfect crimson bead. And as you stare, the line closes. It simply zips shut from end to end, like a tailor stitching a seam, leaving behind nothing but smooth, unblemished skin that it worked. The realization doesn't crash over you like a wave. It dawns on you, slow and magnificent, like a sunrise. It worked. The entity, the pact, the ritual, it was all real. You are immortal. The word feels too small. You are indestructible. You stand up and walk to the small, polished steel mirror you use for shaving. You stare at your reflection. It is you. The same thinning hair, the same lines of worry etched around your eyes, the same scholarly pallor. But you are looking at a statue, a painting, a fixed image. This face, this body is now permanent. The fear you had of your own decay, of the slow, inevitable betrayal of your own cells, is gone. You will never grow older. You will never get sick. The plague can sweep through Florence 1,000 times, and you will walk through it untouched, a stone in a river of death. A laugh bubbles up from your chest. It's a strange, rusty sound at first, but it grows into a full-throated, exultant roar of triumph. You have done it. You have defied God, nature, and death itself. You are a new kind of man, a species of one. The sheer, intoxicating power of it is overwhelming. You are a god. You throw open the shutters of your window, the ones you had stuffed with vinegar rags for so long. You breathe in the Florentine air, not with fear, but with a sense of ownership. This is your city. This is your world. And you will have all the time in the world to enjoy it. For the first time in over a year, you walk out your front door and into the street. The city is still grim, the faces of the people etched with fear and grief. But it doesn't touch you. You feel insulated, protected by a secret shield of absolute certainty. A death cart rumbles past, piled high. A year ago, the sight would have sent you running for cover. Now you watch it with a kind of detached pity. Poor, fragile creatures, bound to their pathetic, fleeting lifespans. You feel a sense of superiority so profound it's almost dizzying. You buy a loaf of fresh bread and a bottle of the best wine you can afford. That evening, you sit in your scriptorium, the window wide open, and you toast yourself. You toast your own genius, your own courage. You have gambled with your very existence and won the ultimate prize. The historical fact is that the Black Death eventually receded, burning itself out after killing up to half of Europe's population. But you don't know that. As far as you're concerned, the world is ending, and you are the sole survivor. You are the first man to greet a new, unbroken morning, a morning that will stretch on, perfect and unchanging, forever. And in this first flush of victory, it feels like heaven. The first few decades are a blur of quiet, triumphant discovery. The plague recedes, just as the grimoire implicitly promised it would for you. Florence, and then Europe, slowly, painfully, begins to recover. You watch from your ageless perch, a secret king in a world of mortals. You live simply, carefully. You are a scholar of independent means, a story that holds up well enough in a city still reeling from demographic chaos. Wills have been lost, families erased. A man with a bit of gold and a quiet disposition doesn't attract much notice. You watch the children of your old acquaintances grow up, have children of their own, and then grow old. You attend their funerals, a polite, distant family friend whose remarkable preservation is noted with a shake of the head and a quiet comment about clean living. You learn to affect a slight stoop, to dust your temples with a bit of flour, to complain about a phantom ache in your knee. You become a master of mimicry, playing a part you no longer feel, the part of a man subject to the gentle decay of time. It's a bit of a theatrical production, and you find a certain ironic humor in complaining about your advancing years, when you feel exactly the same as you did that first, glorious morning. Your old servant Piero lives to a ripe old age. His loyalty to you unwavering, is slightly perplexed. He sees his own face wrinkle and his hair turn to snow while yours remains stubbornly fixed. You explain it away with rare herbs and a disciplined lifestyle. He believes you because the alternative is unthinkable. When he finally passes away in his sleep, you are the one who finds him. And as you look down at his peaceful, aged face, you feel the first, unexpected sting of your bargain. You feel a genuine sadness, a loss. But it is a distant, manageable pain. You pay for a fine funeral, and you move on. The world changes, and you change with it. Not physically, of course, but you adapt. Fashions shift from the sober garments of the 14th century to the more flamboyant styles of the Renaissance. You learn to adopt the new clothing, the new manner of speech. You are a chameleon. You watch Brunelleschi raise his impossible dome over the Florence Cathedral, a marvel of engineering. You see the art of Donatello, of Botticelli, of a young Leonardo da Vinci. You have a front row seat to one of the greatest flowerings of human creativity in history. You read the newly printed books made possible by Gutenberg's press, a technological leap that feels almost as miraculous as your own condition. The fact that the first mass-produced book was the Bible is an irony that is not lost on you. You buy one, just for the novelty of it. But as the first century mark approaches, the charade becomes more difficult. The great-grandchildren of the people you once knew are now running the city. You are an anomaly, a living fossil. Whispers start to follow you. He looks no older than he did 40 years ago. There is something unnatural about him. The polite fiction of your clean living is wearing thin. You realize you cannot stay in one place. Your immortality requires you to be a nomad dot, so you pack your gold, your few precious books, leaving the grimoire, as always, hidden and secure, and you leave Florence. You travel to Rome, then to Paris, then to the burgeoning cities of the German states. Each time, you establish a new identity. A quiet merchant, a reclusive translator, a man of minor nobility from a distant, unverifiable land. You become an expert at forging documents, at creating histories for yourself out of whole cloth. You get quite good at it, a true artist of the non-existent resume dot. It is in Paris, in the year 1475, that the true price of your gift begins to reveal itself. You have taken a wife. It was a foolish thing to do, a moment of weakness. Her name is Isabel. She is clever and kind, and her laughter fills the small house you've taken by the Seine. For a few years, you allow yourself the illusion of a normal life. You love her deeply, but every morning you wake up and see the subtle, inexorable march of time on her face. A new line around her eyes, a hint of silver in her dark hair. While you remain a constant, she is a river, flowing ever onward. She sees it too, of course. At first, she jokes about it, calling you her ageless angel. But as the years pass, the joke sours. A quiet fear creeps into her eyes. She begins to study you when she thinks you aren't looking. Why don't you have a single scar? Why do you never fall ill, not even with a common cold? Her love for you becomes mingled with a kind of holy dread. You are her husband, but you are also a mystery that frightens her. You have children. A son, Luke, and a daughter, Sophie. You adore them with a fierceness that terrifies you. You watch them take their first steps, say their first words. You teach them to read. And in them, you see the cruel mathematics of your existence. You will watch them grow from vibrant youths into stooped, frail elders. You will hold their hands as they lie on their deathbeds. And you will walk away, unchanged, the day your son, Luke, now a man of 40 with a family of his own, dies from a sudden fever, is the day the foundation of your eternal life cracks. The grief is not distant or manageable this time. It is a physical agony, a soul-crushing weight that makes your unchanging, healthy body feel like a prison. You stand at his grave, next to your weeping, aging wife, and you feel a loneliness so profound, so absolute, it threatens to shatter your mind. Historians still argue whether the concept of romantic love as we know it today truly existed in the 5th-10th century, or was a later invention. Standing there, your heart breaking for your son and your wife, you know that the love is real. And you know that for you, all love will now be synonymous with loss. You have exchanged one kind of death for 1,000 smaller ones, an eternity of goodbyes. And your sentence has only just begun. Your wife, Isabel, fades like a photograph left in the sun. Her grief over your son's death accelerates her aging, carving deep lines into her face, stealing the light from her eyes. Your own unchanging youth becomes a source of silent torment. Between you, it is a constant physical reminder of your otherness, of the gulf that separates your realities. She stops joking about your agelessness. Now, she simply looks at you with a mixture of love, fear, and a deep, weary resentment. You are a living ghost in your own home, a monument to all that she is losing. She dies in the winter of 1499 on the cusp of a new century, her hand in yours, her last whispered words a question you cannot answer. What are you? After her funeral, you walk along the frozen banks of the Seine. The cold is bitter, but you don't feel it. You never feel cold or heat, not in any meaningful way. You are perfectly, horribly insulated from the world. You stare at your reflection in the dark, swirling water, the same face that stared back at you 50 years ago, the same man who once laughed with triumph in a Florentine scriptorium. That man is a stranger to you now. The intoxicating thrill of immortality has curled. Into a slow-acting poison dot, you leave Paris. There is nothing for you there but ghosts. Your daughter, Sophie, is a grown woman, and your presence is a painful enigma for her and her children. You drift through Europe, a ship without a rudder. The 16th century dawns, a time of immense upheaval. The Reformation splits the church. Monarchs wage endless wars, and new continents are being discovered across the Atlantic. You watch it all with a profound detachment. It's like reading a book. The events are interesting, but they do not touch you. You are a spectator, forever in the audience, never on the stage. It's in a muddy, war-torn field in the Holy Roman Empire, sometime in the 1520s, that you discover the second, more horrifying flaw in your pact. You are caught between a skirmish of mercenary pikemen, a common enough hazard in these troubled times. In the chaos, trying to get your horse out of the path of a cavalry charge, you are knocked to the ground. A soldier, seeing you as a potential threat, thrusts his pike downwards. You throw up your arm to shield your face. The steel point, sharpened to a needle, tears through your forearm. The pain is immediate and shocking. It is a white-hot, piercing agony, a sensation you have not felt in over 150 years. You are so accustomed to your own invulnerability that the sheer biological reality of the injury is stunning. You scramble away in the confusion, clutching your arm, and hide in a thicket until the fighting moves on. You expect the wound to close. You wait for the familiar, magical stitching to begin. The neat zipping up that erases all harm. It doesn't happen. You sit there for an hour, your heart, which you can't feel beating, somehow pounding with a new and terrible kind of fear. The wound is a deep, ragged gash. It bleeds sluggishly, the blood unnaturally thick, but it does not stop, and it does not heal. It just stays. A perfect, open wound. The Pact, the voice in your head. Your flame is frozen. It will not grow. It will not fade. You will persist as you are. Now, the horrifying truth crashes down upon you. You are not invulnerable to injury. You are invulnerable to change. The Pact didn't give you a magical healing ability. It simply locked your body in the state it was. And at the very moment the Pact was sealed, a single static photograph. At that moment, you were whole, uninjured. But any new injury, any new damage, becomes part of the photograph. It is a permanent addition. The wound on your arm will never heal. It will never get infected. It will never fester. It will never scar over. It will remain an open, bleeding gash for the rest of eternity. Panic, cold and absolute, seizes you. You rip a strip of cloth from your tunic and bind the wound tightly, not to help it heal, but simply to stop the bleeding and hide the ghastly sight. Your body is a porcelain doll. It can be chipped, it can be broken, and it can never be mended. Suddenly, the world is not a fascinating spectacle. It is a minefield. Every sharp corner, every loose stone, every angry dog, every man with a knife, is a potential source of a permanent, agonizing disfigurement. You could spend 1,000 years with a broken leg that never sets, or a burn that never cools. You remember the casual way you once tested your gift, pricking your hand with a lancet. The memory now makes you feel sick. What if you had slipped? What if you had plunged it deep into your palm? You would have spent the last century and a half with a permanent hole in your hand. The quirk of some alchemical texts detailing self-mutilation as part of a spiritual journey now seems less like fringe belief and more like a terrifying cautionary tale. This new knowledge changes everything. Your quiet detachment shatters, replaced by a constant, gnawing anxiety. You become obsessively careful. You walk slowly, deliberately. You avoid crowds. You shun cobblestone streets for smoother paths. You flinch at loud noises. You take to wearing thick leather gloves at all times to protect your hands. Historians still argue about the exact composition and effectiveness of early forms of plate armor, but you find yourself studying the craftsmanship with a newfound personal interest. Not for war, but for simple, everyday survival. You're eternal. Life is not a fortress. It's a house of glass, and you must now spend forever trying not to throw stones. The gash on your forearm becomes your secret shame, a constant throbbing reminder of your fragility. You keep it perpetually bound, the wrapping becoming as much a part of your attire as your boots or your coat. It's an annoying, cumbersome reality, like having to manually operate your own lungs. The 16th century bleeds into the 17th. You watch the world ignite in the flames of the 30 Years' War, a conflict so brutal it makes the skirmishes of your youth look like tavern brawls. The sheer scale of the carnage forces a new way of life. Upon you, your careful, anxious existence is no longer enough. To survive, you must become invisible. This is the beginning of your life as a true ghost. Before, you were a nomad, moving from city to city. Now, You must erase yourself completely with each move. You perfect the art of the subtle entrance and the silent exit. You learn to live in the margins, in the neighborhoods where people are too busy or too poor to ask questions. You learn to be forgettable. You adopt the most common names, wear the most unremarkable clothes, affect the most neutral of expressions. You are no longer Giovanni or Henry or Friedrich. You are just a man, a background figure in the grand painting of history. With each new identity, you shed the old one like a snake sheds its skin. You cannot afford to carry keepsakes. No portraits of your lost family. No letters, no treasured objects. Attachments are anchors, and you are a vessel that must never drop anchor. The only thing you carry from one life to the next is your gold, which you periodically have melted down and re-stamped to match the current coinage and the black-bound grimoire. Your original sin, which you keep buried in a lead-lined box, in a different pre-selected location with each move. This constant erasure is something strange to your sense of self. Who are you when your name, your home, your history, and your relationships are all disposable fictions? You are a story. You tell to others, and when you move on, the story vanishes. After a while, you begin to feel like you're vanishing too. Your core identity, the Florentine scholar who made the Pact, feels like a character from a book you read a very long time ago. Was he brave or foolish, arrogant or desperate? You can no longer remember the precise texture of his fear, the soaring height of his initial triumph. He is a ghost to you too. You live through the age of Baroque splendor and the sober age of reason. You watch the rise of scientific inquiry. You read Newton and Descartes, and you see the world of humors and miasmas you were born into, systematically dismantled and replaced by a universe of laws and mathematics. There is a bitter irony in this. Humanity is learning the secrets of the physical world while you are trapped by a secret that defies all of them. You could walk into the Royal Society of London, a place buzzing with the greatest minds of the age, and present your unchanging body and your unhealing wound as proof of a different kind of reality. They would either dissect you or lock you in an asylum. Probably both, in that order. One quirky tidbit you overhear is that some natural philosophers of the era believed that asbestos, the miracle mineral that could be woven into fireproof cloth, was wool from a mythical species of salamander that lived in fire. It makes you smile. Their version of magic is so much cleaner and less demanding than yours. Historians still argue whether the Enlightenment was a genuine revolution in human thought or merely an intellectual branding exercise for ideas that had been developing for centuries. For you, it's intensely personal. It's the era that solidifies your alienation. You understand the new science. You read the philosophy, but you cannot be a part of it. You are a pre-scientific man, a living relic of a darker, more credulous age. Your very existence is a superstition to combat the hollowing out of your own identity. You throw yourself into observation. You become a collector of details. You learn to perfectly mimic accents, to understand the subtle shifts in social etiquette, to follow the labyrinthine genealogies of the great European houses. You are a walking, breathing archive of human culture. But you are a read-only file. You can absorb, but you cannot contribute. You cannot write a book, for it would tie you to a name. You cannot paint, for your style would become recognizable. You cannot express any of the vast, churning sea of knowledge and experience within you. You are a library with no doors, a museum, with no visitors. One evening in London, in the early 1700s, you are careless. A simple misstep on a rain-slicked cobblestone. You fall, and your hand smashes against the granite curb. You hear a sickening crack. The pain is blinding. You scramble up, cradling your hand, and flee to your rented rooms. You unwrap the glove. Your index finger is bent at a horrifying, unnatural angle. A clean break. It doesn't reset. It doesn't. Swell. It just stays broken. A new permanent flaw. Another eternal reminder. You stare at the crooked finger, your own personal, agonizing gargoyle, and you understand you haven't just lost your identity. You are losing your very form. You are a statue, and the pigeons of time have started to chip away at you, piece by agonizing piece. The crooked finger is a constant, tactile torment. Unlike the wound on your arm, which is usually covered, your finger is always there, a topographical error in the landscape of your own hand. You learn to hide it, to curl your hand in a way that looks natural, to wear gloves even when indoors. It's another layer of the charade, another secret to be kept. The 18th century rolls on, a whirlwind of revolutions, both political and industrial. You are in Paris when the Bastille falls, a spectator in the crowd, watching the raw, violent birth of a new era. You are in the American colonies, a quiet tobacconist in Philadelphia, as a new nation declares its independence. You see the first steam engines belching smoke into the English sky, and you know, with the certainty of a man who has seen centuries, turn that the world is about to change in ways you cannot even imagine. But while the world hurtles forward, you are trapped in a different kind of prison. It's no longer the physical cage of your unchanging body that is the primary source of your suffering. It is your mind. Your memory, once your greatest asset as a scholar, has become your curse. Your brain, unlike the rest of your body, is not static. It continues to learn, to absorb, to remember. It is a perfect, tireless recording device, and it never, ever forgets. You don't suffer from the gentle fading of memory that allows mortals to cope with grief and trauma. Every loss you have ever experienced is as fresh and sharp as the day it happened. You can still feel the weight of your wife Isabel's hand in yours as she died 300 years ago. You can hear the exact sound of your son Lutz's laughter. You can picture the face of Piero, your first servant, his brow furrowed in concern for you. These are not fond, softened memories. They are ghosts. They live inside you, a permanent phantom population in the silent city of your mind. You carry the grief of every friend you have ever made and outlived. The kind bookseller in Amsterdam who shared your love for Spinoza. The witty playwright in London who died of consumption. The fiercely intelligent woman in Vienna who taught you the intricacies of the harpsichord before succumbing to smallpox. You have loved people in your quiet, guarded way, hundreds of them across the centuries, and you have buried them all. Your mind is a vast, sprawling cemetery of faces, names, and conversations, each headstone perfectly preserved, each epitaph written in the ink of fresh sorrow. It's an archive of grief, and you are its sole, eternal librarian. To cope, you develop mental tricks. You try to compartmentalize, to build walls in your mind, locking away certain centuries, certain people. But the memories always find a way to bleed through. A certain slant of light, the smell of baking bread, a piece of music drifting from an open window. Anything can be a key that unlocks a flood of perfect, painful recall. You might see a young mother with her child and be instantly transported back to the 10th century, watching Isabel play with little Sophie, the joy of the moment inextricably tangled with the agony of its ultimate loss. This endless accumulation of memory begins to fray your sanity. You have lived so many lives under so many names that they start to blend together. Did you live in that small German town before or after you were in Lisbon? Was the man who taught you to fence named Antoine or Jean-Pierre? The details, once so sharp, begin to stack on top of one another, creating a confusing, layered palimpsest of experience. The human mind was not designed for this. It needs to forget, to smooth over the rough edges of the past to make room for the present. Yours cannot. It just keeps adding new layers, the weight of them threatening to crush the very foundation of your consciousness. You try to find solace in your old scholarly pursuits, but even that is a source of pain. You read a new history of the Florentine Republic, and it describes the era of your birth. The author makes small errors, misinterpreting a document or misunderstanding the political climate. The old you, the scholar, would have relished the debate, but now it's just agonizing. You were there. You know the truth. You know the precise texture of the political arguments in the piazza, the real reason a certain guild went on strike. Historians still argue whether Savonarola was a devout reformer or a power-hungry demagogue. You know the answer because you stood in the crowd and listened to him speak. You felt the mesmerizing power of his fanaticism firsthand. But you can tell no one. Your perfect memory makes you the most qualified historian on the planet, and also the most silent. You are a primary source that can never be cited. This fringe, useless knowledge is just another stone on the growing mountain of your silent, secret burden. One day, while living as a reclusive clockmaker in Geneva in the early 1800s, a profession, you chose for its quiet, solitary precision you drop a delicate gear. As you bend to pick it up, your crooked finger brushes against the workbench. The jolt of familiar, pointless pain is the last straw. The walls in your mind crumble. The grief of 500 years, the faces of the dead, the terror of your own fragility, the crushing loneliness, it all comes rushing in at once. You curl up on the floor of your workshop, surrounded by the merciless, ticking clocks, and you let out a silent scream, a howl of pure agony that has been building within you for centuries. The archive has breached its walls. The ghosts are out, and they are all screaming with you. The breakdown in your Geneva workshop marks a turning point. The quiet suffering you've endured for centuries gives way to an active, desperate despair. The pact, which you have tried to forget, to ignore, to simply endure, is now a problem. You must solve. You can no longer just live with it. You have to face it. You dig up the lead-lined box containing the black-bound grimoire. It has been decades since you last looked at it. The book feels cold in your hands, not a physical cold, but a deep, absorbing chill, as if it's leaching the warmth from you. The strange, light-shrinking gilding on its pages seems darker than you remember. You spend months poring over it again, your now vast knowledge of languages and symbols giving you a deeper insight than you had as a young, desperate scholar in Florence. You are no longer just looking for answers. You are cross-examining your enemy. You reread the passage about the pact, the lines that sealed your fate. Your flame is frozen. It will not grow. It will not fade. You will persist as you are. Now, you had interpreted this as a gift. Now you see the horrifying precision of the language. Persist as you are. Now, not heal, not adapt, not grow, just a state of absolute, eternal stasis. It was never a promise of divine health. It was a sentence of petrification. You look for a loophole, an escape clause, a hidden addendum for dissatisfied customers. There is none. The book is a manual for creating a cage, not for picking its lock. But as you delve into the latter half of the grimoire, a section you barely glanced at in your youthful arrogance, you find something else. It doesn't describe how to end the pact. It describes the pact's purpose, its nature. And it describes the entity you summoned, the sleeper in the static, the anchor of ages. The book speaks of it not as a demon or a god, but as something more fundamental, a being or a force that exists outside of time and change. It is an anchor cast from a realm of pure stasis into the flowing river of our universe. The pact, you realize, does not just affect you. It strengthens the anchor, your own personal stasis, your frozen, unchanging existence, acts as a tiny, sympathetic resonator, a small beacon of permanence in a universe of constant flux. You are not just a beneficiary of its power. You are a fuel source, a battery. As this realization dawns on you, the air in your workshop grows cold again. The same pressure builds in your ears, the same feeling of a vast, ancient mind turning its attention toward you. The presence from the Etruscan ruins is back. It has been with you dormant all this time. Your renewed focus on the grimoire, your direct probing of the Pact's mechanics, has woken it up. The voice floods your mind again. The same soundless, emotionless comprehension. The debtor reviews the terms. Unusual. The word unusual carries with it the weight of eons. It implies that in all its long existence, this is a new development. No one has ever lasted long enough, or been foolish enough, to try and renegotiate. What is the price? You think, pouring all your desperate intent into the question. You never stated the full price. The price is the Pact itself. You desired an end to decay. You have IT. You desired an escape from death. You have it. The terms are fulfilled. This isn't life. You scream in the silence of your own head. It's a cage. My body breaks and never mends. My mind fills with endless grief. This is torment. There is a pause, a stillness that feels like the humming of colossal, indifferent machinery. Correct. The universe is motion, change, flux. To be separated from the current is to become an obstacle. The river of time will beat against you. IT will grind you down. Your physical form will be worn away by the friction of existence. Your mental form will drown in the accumulation of moments. This is the nature of stasis in a dynamic realm. IT is a consequence, not a clause. You asked to be a stone. You did not specify where in the river you wish to be placed. The cold, brutal logic of it is crushing. It isn't a trick. It's physics. A law of its alien reality that you, in your ignorance, have shackled yourself to. You haven't been cheated. You've just finally understood the full, horrifying implications of what you asked for. The fine print wasn't hidden. It was written in the very fabric of the universe you tried to defy. End it, you beg. Release me. The Pact is symbiotic. Your persistence feeds the anchor. The anchor guarantees your persistence. IT cannot be undone, only fulfilled. Fulfilled? How? When does it end? The voice offers the final, devastating piece of information. The Pact ends when the anchor is nitrogen monoxide, longer needed. When the river ceases to flow. When all motion ceases. When the last star cools, and the universe finds its final, perfect equilibrium. Then your obligation is complete. The presence withdraws, leaving you in a silence more profound and terrifying than any you have ever known. You are left with the book in your lap and a single soul-shattering certainty. Your sentence is not for 1,000 years or 1,000,000. Your immortality is not the prize. It is the work. It is the prison term. And it only ends with the heat death of the universe. The quirky historical belief in a world soul or anima mundi suddenly doesn't seem so far-fetched. It's just that. You've shackled yours to the world's eventual corpse. You finally understand the dark price of eternal life. It is the obligation to witness the end of everything. The entity's revelation leaves you shattered. The concept of waiting for the heat death of the universe is so vast, so cosmically monstrous, that your mind can't fully grasp it. It's like trying to look directly at the sun. You are no longer just a man in a cage. You are a prisoner in solitary confinement, and your cell is time itself. The despair you felt before was a storm. This is a vacuum. The absolute absence of hope. For the next century, you exist in a haze of nihilism. The 19th century rages around you, The Napoleonic Wars, the Industrial Revolution, transforming the face of the planet, the rise of empires. You drift through it all, a phantom of pure despair. Your meticulous caution dissolves. What's the point? Another broken bone, another unhealing gash. What is that compared to the sentence you are serving? You become reckless. You work dangerous jobs. You join the crew of a whaling ship out of New Bedford. A brutal, perilous life. You welcome the sting of the freezing spray, the risk of a snapping line. You are hoping for an accident, a fall from the masthead, the crushing jaw of a sperm whale. Something, anything, that will destroy your physical form so completely that you can no longer persist. You are in the forecastle one night when the ship lurches in a storm, and a heavy barrel of oil breaks free. It crushes your leg against a bulkhead. The sound of the bone snapping is sickeningly loud. The pain is astronomical. But you are not pulped. You are not obliterated. The crew, thinking you dead or dying, are shocked when you remain conscious. Your mangled leg simply there. A permanent, catastrophic injury. They see you not as a man, but as a curse. An omen. At the next port, in a fog-shrouded Pacific island, they abandon you on the shore. They don't even have the decency to try and kill you. They are too afraid. You spend years on that island, your leg a useless, twisted appendage. You learn to drag yourself along the sand. You cannot die of starvation. You cannot die of thirst. You simply endure, a broken sculpture of a man, tormented by the ceaseless pain of your shattered limb. The hope that total destruction could be a way out dies. Your body, it seems, will hold its form no matter the injury, a ghastly parody of integrity. Eventually, a trading vessel happens upon the island, and the horrified sailors, believing you to be some kind of demon, reluctantly take you aboard in exchange for the last of your ancient gold. Your new life is defined by a singular, obsessive quest, the desperate search for death. You have tried accidents. Now you will try intention. You have the grimoire. It taught you how to sever yourself from the cycle of death. Surely, you reason, the dark knowledge that created your condition must hold the secret to its undoing. You become a reverse alchemist. You are not trying to perfect matter. You are trying to find a way to annihilate it. Specifically, you plunge back into the world of the occult, but from the other side. You hunt down arcane texts, whispered legends, and charlatans who claim to have power over life and death. You seek out anything that promises oblivion. You investigate the myth of the Holy Grail, not for eternal life, but wondering if a vessel of such holy power could counteract your unholy pact. You follow rumors of cursed artifacts, of swords that can kill gods, of rituals that can unmake a soul. It's a fool's errand, a tour of humanity's darkest and most desperate superstitions. One fringe theory you encounter suggests that spontaneous human combustion was a real phenomenon, caused by an imbalance of internal phlogiston. For a week, you entertain the mad hope that you could somehow make yourself explode. It's a testament to your desperation. Your search leads you to Cairo in the 1880s, a city teeming with European archaeologists and tomb raiders, all scrabbling for the treasures of the pharaohs. The Egyptian obsession with the afterlife is legendary. Their Book of the Dead is an intricate guide to navigating the underworld. You learn to read hieroglyphs, hoping to find a spell for utter annihilation, a prayer to a god of nothingness. You spend your nights in ancient tombs, surrounded by the sarcophagi of kings who spent fortunes to ensure their survival after death. The irony is a physical weight in the dry, dusty air. They tried so hard to achieve what you are now desperate to escape. Historians still argue about the true purpose of the so-called curses placed on the tombs of pharaohs. Were they serious magical wards, or merely deterrents for thieves? You wish they were real. You actively try to trigger them. You touch everything you're not supposed to touch. You read the most ominous-looking inscriptions aloud. Nothing happens. The dead gods of Egypt are silent. Their power, if it ever existed, is long gone. Your quest becomes more direct. You hire assassins. You offer them fortunes to end you. Most laugh in your face. The few who try fail in spectacular, horrifying ways. A bullet flattens against your skull, leaving a permanent, dented indentation, but failing to penetrate. A knife breaks against your ribs. One man, a particularly determined nihilist from St. Petersburg, succeeds in pushing you from the top of a new, tall building in Chicago. You plummet to the street below. Every bone in your body shatters, but you do not die. You lie there, a conscious, thinking mind trapped in a broken bag of flesh, until the city authorities, having no idea what to do with you, eventually have you removed. Each failure is a new permanent injury. Each attempt to die only adds to your collection of eternal agonies. You are a walking catalog of pain. Your body is a testament to your own futility. You have discovered the final, perfect cruelty of the Pact. You cannot love, and you cannot die. You are simply trapped, and there is no one to appeal the sentence to. The court, you now understand, has been adjourned for the rest of time. The 20th century arrives, not with a whisper, but with a roar. The world you were born into, a world of horses, swords, and handwritten manuscripts, is gone. It has been replaced by a civilization of steel, electricity, and engine-driven speed. You, a man whose mind was shaped by Aristotle and Aquinas, now find yourself in a world defined by Einstein and Ford. The alienation you felt during the Enlightenment was a gentle melancholy compared to the profound, disorienting shock of modernity. Your broken, twisted body makes it impossible to blend in. You are a creature of gawking curiosity and medical horror. For a time, you are confined to institutions, passed from one bewildered doctor to another. They X-ray you, their new wonder. Light revealing a skeleton so shattered and bizarrely fused that it looks like a surrealist sculpture. They write papers about you, diagnosing you with 100 different impossible syndromes. They call you the ossified man. You are a medical mystery, a freak show exhibit for the new scientific age. But they can't fix you. They can't even explain you. Eventually, their curiosity wanes, and you are left to rot in the back ward of a state asylum, a forgotten relic. You finally escape during the chaos of the First World War, slipping away during a transfer. You spend the next few decades as a hermit, a monster in the shadows. You live in abandoned farmhouses, in the sewers of great cities, in the forgotten corners of a world that is moving too fast to notice a broken thing hiding in its cracks. You watch as humanity perfects new and terrifying ways to kill itself. The machine gun, poison gas, the bomber aircraft. You see the rise of ideologies that demand a loyalty as absolute as your pact with the sleeper. Fascism, communism. You watch the Second World War unfold, a global firestorm that makes the conflicts of your youth seem like petty squabbles. And you feel nothing. The suffering is too vast, too impersonal. Your own private, eternal torment has consumed your ability to feel empathy for the fleeting tragedies of mortals. The world rebuilds, and the pace of change accelerates exponentially. You witness the dawn of the atomic age, and for a brief, mad moment, you have hope again. Annihilation, the power to unmake cities in a flash of light. Could this be it? The force strong enough to break the Pact? During the height of the Cold War, you travel to Nevada. You sneak as close as you can to a nuclear test site. You lie in the desert, a broken gargoyle under the desert moon, and wait for the countdown. The flash is brighter than 1,000 suns. The heat is unimaginable. The shockwave rips across the desert floor and flings your broken body through the air like a discarded toy. But when the dust settles, you are still there. Burned, irradiated, more damaged than ever, but still conscious. Still persisting. The Pact holds. Even the power of the atom is just another part of the river of time that beats against you. You are lost. Utterly, completely lost in a future you inadvertently helped create but can no longer comprehend. The world becomes a symphony of noise and light that your medieval mind can't process. Cars, telephones, radios, and then televisions. Screens everywhere, flickering with images that move with terrifying speed. You see men walk on the moon, an event so reality-bending that for a moment you think you've finally gone insane. The history you lived, the world you knew, is now. Something children learn from books, and the books are increasingly digital, ephemeral things you can't even hold. You try to navigate this new world. You learn about computers, about the burgeoning internet. You sit in a library, a hunched and cloaked figure, staring at a screen. You can access more information in an hour than your entire Florentine library contained. You read about the Black Death, your Black Death. It's a historical event, a data point. There are charts, graphs, casualty statistics. Historians still argue about the precise strain of the bacterium Yersinia pestis responsible. You could tell them. You could describe the smell of the air, the sound of the bells, the look of the buboes. But you are a ghost at the machine. You type a few words into a history forum, a perfect first-hand detail, and are dismissed as a crank, a weirdo playing a role. Your truth is too strange to be believed. The language changes. Slang evolves at a dizzying pace. Social customs shift and invert. The solid, understandable world of hierarchy and tradition you knew has been replaced by a chaotic, fluid, globalized culture that is utterly alien. It's not just that you're old-fashioned. You are from a different species of society. A quirky tidbit you learn is that people now willingly pay money for water in bottles. A concept so absurd to a man who once worried about well poisoning that it makes you want to laugh or weep. You are an artifact, a living fossil from a forgotten epoch, and the museum you belong in hasn't existed for 1,000 years. You are more alone now, surrounded by billions of people, than you ever were in your solitary scriptorium. You have outlived not just people, but worlds. And the future is a foreign country, and you are an illegal and eternal immigrant. The new millennium arrives. You don't celebrate. For you, the turning of a calendar page is not a moment of hope, but another tick of the clock in a prison with no walls. You are now a creature of pure survival, a collection of habits and precautions, honed over 700 years. The world has become a digital panopticon, a web of cameras, records, and data trails that makes your old methods of creating new identities impossible. To be a ghost now requires a level of technological savvy you can barely muster. You exist in the cracks, living on the fringes of society, using cash, avoiding official records, a homeless, broken phantom haunted by the glow of a billion screens. Your mind, the relentless archive, is beginning to fail. Not in the mortal sense of forgetting, but in a far more terrifying way. It is failing to organize. The sheer volume of memory has become too great. The mental walls you built to compartmentalize. Your grief, your different lives, have been eroded by the endless tide of time. A past is no longer the past. It all exists at once. You will be walking down a street in modern-day Tokyo, a cacophony of neon and noise, and suddenly you are also standing in a muddy field in 17th century Germany, the smell of gunpowder sharp in your nose. The face of a 21st century commuter will momentarily flicker, replaced by the face of your wife, Isabel, her expression clouded with worry. The roar of a maglev train becomes the tolling of the death knell in 14th century Florence. The sensations are not memories. They are simultaneous, overlapping realities. Your consciousness is becoming unmoored from linear time. The centuries are blurring. The decades are collapsing into each other. You lose track of who you are supposed to be now. Are you the clockmaker from Geneva or the tobacconist from Philadelphia? The names, the faces, the carefully constructed personas, they all start to bleed into one another, creating a composite personality, a fractured mosaic of 1,000 different men. You catch yourself speaking in an archaic Florentine dialect, only to slip into the clipped English of the Victorian-era mid-sentence. Your sanity, which you have guarded so jealously for so long, is fraying like an ancient tapestry. The quiet, constant pain from your broken body is a grounding reality. The only thing that sometimes helps you sort the now from the then. The agony in your leg is a 19th century agony. The crookedness of your finger is an 18th century mistake. Your body has become a grotesque timeline of your own suffering. You are your own personal archaeological dig. You try to find patterns, to impose order on the chaos. You spend hours, days, simply trying to reconstruct a coherent chronology of your own existence. You draw timelines in the dirt of alleyways, trying to place events in their proper order. Was the Reformation before or after you met Leonardo? It sounds like a ridiculous question, but in the swirling vortex of your mind, the sequence is no longer certain. The historical fact that the Renaissance predated the Reformation is a piece of data you know intellectually, but the lived experience is jumbled. It's like having every book in a library taken off the shelves and thrown into one enormous, chaotic pile. You start talking to yourself, to the ghosts. You have conversations with Piero, your first servant, asking his advice on how to navigate a world of self-driving cars. You argue with Isabel about the futility of hope. You see them in crowds, on empty park benches, reflected in shop windows. They are more real to you now than the fleeting, transient mortals who rush past, their faces buried in their phones. Historians still argue about the prevalence and treatment of mental illness in earlier centuries, often labeling it as demonic possession or spiritual crisis. You feel you are experiencing all of the above. You are a man possessed by his own. Past that one day, you find yourself sitting on a beach, somewhere in what might be Australia. The sun is setting. You are watching a family pack up their things. A little girl, no older than 5, drops her plastic bucket. She begins to cry, a small, heartbroken wail. And in that moment, every instance of grief you have ever witnessed or experienced in nearly 800 years hits you at once. The death of your son, Luke, the sorrow in Isabel's eyes, the widow's tear on the gravestone, the final breath of the condemned man, the faces of thousands of dead soldiers, plague victims, and lost friends. It all converges into a single, unbearable point of agony. The little girl's trivial sorrow is the key that unlocks the entire archive of grief. The dam of your sanity breaks completely. It is no longer a fraying or a blurring. It is a shattering. Your consciousness fragments. You are no longer a single person experiencing overlapping memories. You are all of them at once. You are the Florentine scholar, cowering in his room. You are the triumphant immortal, laughing at the sky. You are the grieving husband, the broken sailor, the medical freak, the desperate seeker of death. All your past selves rise up and start screaming at once. The coherent I that has somehow persisted through all this time dissolves. There is no longer a single observer. There is only the chaos. The shattering is not a temporary madness. It is a new state of being. The singular you is gone, replaced by a cacophonous committee of your past selves, all vying for control in the ruins of your consciousness. There is no longer a present moment to anchor to. There is only the storm. This fractured existence is untenable in the world of humanity. Your erratic behavior, your jumbled speech, You're visible. Horrifying injuries. You are a danger to yourself and a terror to others. The remnants of your once formidable intellect recognize this. The scholar in you, the careful chameleon, the hermit, these fractured pieces of your personality, in a rare moment of consensus, know that the only path left is complete and total isolation. You must leave the human world behind, forever. Your final journey is a slow, agonizing pilgrimage away from civilization. You use the last dregs of your cunning to move, not between cities, but between the empty spaces on the map. You cross oceans as a stowaway in the dark, stinking holds of cargo. Ships. You traverse continents on foot, following rail lines, hiding in forests, sleeping in caves. Your body, a museum of pain, protests every step. The shattered leg, the broken finger, the unhealed burns from the atomic blast, it is a symphony of agony. But the physical pain is a dull background hum compared to the shrieking chaos in your mind. You are driven by a singular, primal instinct to find silence. Not just the absence of human noise, but a place so remote, so desolate, that the ghosts of your memory might finally have no scenery to cling to, no sensory input to trigger their relentless assault. You seek a place without seasons, without weather, without life. A place of pure elemental stasis that might resonate with the stasis in your soul. You travel north, then north again, through the taiga, past the last scraggly line of trees, into the vast, unending expanse of the Arctic tundra. The cold is absolute, a physical presence. It does not harm you, of course. You feel no chill, but you watch the moisture in your breath crystallize instantly in the air. You see the life drain from any small creature foolish enough to be caught in the open. It is a world distilled to its barest essentials, rock, ice, and wind. It feels appropriate. Here, the ghosts begin to quiet. The landscape is too monotonous, too alien. There is nothing to remind you of a Parisian street or a Florentine garden. The unbroken white of the snow, the flat gray of the sky, it is a blank canvas. The screaming committee in your head subsides into a dull, confused murmur. For the first time in centuries, you experience moments of near silence in your mind. It is the most profound relief you have ever known. You find your final home in one of the driest, coldest, and most remote places on Earth, the McMurdo Dry Valleys in Antarctica. It is a place that barely belongs on this planet. It is a polar desert where it has not snowed in millions of years. The ground is a barren pavement of gravel and rock. There are no plants, no animals, save for a few microscopic organisms huddled in the shelter of rocks. The wind, hyper-dry and freezing, scours the landscape, mummifying any organic matter that finds its way there. The historical fact is that scientists consider these valleys the closest terrestrial analog to the surface of Mars. You, in your broken state, consider it the closest thing to peace. You find a shallow cave carved into a mountainside by eons of wind, a small alcove sheltered from the worst of the katabatic gales. This is your last retreat, your scriptorium, your tomb. You sit at the mouth of this cave. You have nothing left. Your gold is long gone. The grimoire, your original sin, was cast into a volcanic fissure somewhere in Iceland decades ago during a fit of lucid rage. You have only your broken body and the murmuring, fractured memories inside you. You sit and you watch. You watch the sun circle the horizon for 6 months of the year, never setting, just painting the ice fields in endlessly shifting shades of pale gold and blue. Then you watch it disappear for 6 months of perpetual, star-dusted twilight. The auroras, the aurora australis, rip across the sky in silent, shimmering curtains of green and violet. They are the ghosts of solar wind, the only specters in this empty land. They do not speak to you. They do not torment you. They are just beautiful and silent. Your mind, in this profound isolation, begins to settle. The chaos does not vanish, but it stratifies. The memories and personalities find their own layers, like sediment at the bottom of a still lake. You are no longer all of them at once. You are a geological formation of consciousness. Sometimes, for a week, you are the scholar again, contemplating the physics of the auroras. Sometimes, you are the grieving husband, and you feel a deep, silent ache that resonates with the vast emptiness around you. Sometimes you are the broken sailor, and the howling wind is the only voice you hear. But the screaming has stopped. You have achieved a kind of peace, the peace of absolute, unending solitude. You have retreated from humanity, from life, from a world that you could no longer bear. You are a statue in the emptiest museum on earth, waiting for the exhibition to end. You sit in the mouth of your Antarctic cave. How long has it been? 1,000 years? 10,000? You have no way of knowing. Time, for you, has lost all meaning. It is no longer a river flowing past you, but an ocean in which you are suspended. The sun still rises and sets in its long, slow polar rhythm, but the days and nights have merged into a single, continuous experience. The concept of a day is a memory from a different kind of existence, like remembering the taste of bread. Humanity is gone. You do not know how or when they left. There was no dramatic apocalypse, no final war that you witnessed. They just faded. For a few centuries, their automated probes and satellites still occasionally streaked across the sky, their orbits slowly decaying. Then they too were gone. The silence they left behind was deeper, more profound than the mere absence of their noise. It was the silence of a story that has been finished. Sometimes, a fragment of your consciousness, the part that was once a scholar, wonders what they became. Did they transcend their flesh? Did they journey to the stars? Or did they simply succumb to some quiet final entropy? You will never know. Their absence is just another layer in the geology of your memory. Your body, your eternal prison, is a ruin. The ceaseless, grinding wind of the dry valleys has worn you down like sandstone. Your clothes turned to dust millennia ago. Your exposed skin and flesh have been scoured away, burnished down to the bone in places. You are a grotesque sculpture of shattered, fused bone and mummified sinew, a permanent monument to your ancient, foolish pact. The pain is a constant, a law of your universe, as fundamental as gravity. You no longer notice it, any more than a planet notices the pull of its star. Your mind, once a screaming chaos, has achieved a strange, cold clarity. The individual personalities have dissolved, their memories and experiences merging into a single, vast, dispassionate consciousness. You are no longer Giovanni or Henry or the ossified man. You are just an observer, a point of awareness. You remember everything, from the taste of wine in 14th century Florence to the feeling of a nuclear blast. But these memories no longer carry the charge of emotion. They are data points in the immense archive of your existence. They are as remote and impersonal as the constellations wheeling overhead. You watch the earth change. The ice caps melt and refreeze in cycles that last for eons. Mountains rise and are worn down to dust. The continents continue their slow, inexorable drift. You watch new forms of life evolve in the warming seas. Strange creatures that crawl onto the land, flourish for 1,000,000 years, and then vanish, leaving behind only faint traces in the rock. You watch all of this with the serene, detached curiosity of a geologist studying strata. You are a part of the planet's memory now. A conscious fossil, the sky becomes your final grimoire. You watch the stars. You have been watching them for so long that you can perceive their proper motion. You see the familiar constellations of your human youth distort, and dissolve. You watch new stars being born in glowing nebulae, and you watch old, giant stars die in silent, spectacular explosions of light that take 100,000 years to cross the void and reach your eyes. The Pact, the voice of the sleeper in the static, had promised you would persist until the stars grow cold. You are now the witness to that process. You are the sole audience for the slow, majestic death of the universe. Time continues to stretch, to dilate into spans that make your human life, and even the entire history of life on Earth, seem like a single fleeting spark. The sun, your sun, swells into a red giant, boiling away the oceans and turning the Earth into a charred cinder. You persist. Your cave is vaporized. Your rocky perch is melted into slag. But your point of consciousness, the anchor of your pact, endures, a disembodied observer adrift in the furnace of the dying solar system. The sun finally exhausts its fuel, collapsing into a white dwarf, a cold, fading ember in the infinite dark. You are alone in the silence between worlds, an eternity of silence. Your consciousness, unburdened by a physical form, unmoored from a planet, expands. You can feel the gravitational pull of distant galaxies, the faint whisper of cosmic background radiation. You are no longer just a witness. You are a sensorium for the dying cosmos. The Pact's fine print becomes clear. The sleeper in the static isn't just an entity. It's a principle. The principle of entropy, of final equilibrium. And you are its acolyte, its final priest, tasked with presiding over the long, slow funeral of everything. You watch as the last galaxies spiral apart, their light red-shifting into nothingness. You watch as the last stubborn red dwarf stars flicker and die. You watch as black holes themselves slowly evaporate over trillions of years through a process you can finally truly comprehend. The universe cools. The river of time slows to a crawl. The last flickers of energy fade into a uniform, ambient hum just above absolute zero. The anchor's work is almost done. Your obligation is almost fulfilled. Your consciousness becomes a silent, motionless observer watching the slow dance of galaxies, forever dot, and as the very last photon in the universe winks out as the final. Vibration ceases and the perfect, absolute static of eternity arise. You feel the pact dissolve. The voice of the sleeper speaks one last time, not in your mind, but as the final law of reality itself, dot fulfilled, dot, and then the terrible price of eternal life was to bear witness to the end of all life, to watch every last candle in the universe be extinguished before your own was finally allowed to go out. The silence that follows is not a fearsome one, not anymore. It is a silence of completion, of rest earned over a span of time too great to imagine. The broken scholar from Florence has finally found his peace. His fear of the dark has been conquered. By becoming the last thing to see the light dot, as you lie there now, in the comfort of your own bed, feel the gentle weight of your blankets, the soft pressure of the pillow beneath your head. Listen to the quiet sounds of your own world, the hum of the fan, the distant murmur of the sleeping city, the sound of your own steady breathing. These are the sounds of life, the gentle, fleeting, beautiful sounds of a world in motion. Unlike the poor scholar, your time is a gift, a brief but precious chance to be a part of the flow, not a stone resisting it. Let the vast, cold emptiness of his story make the warmth of your own small space feel even cozier, even safer. There is no pact to be made tonight, no price to be paid. There is only the quiet journey into your own peaceful, mortal sleep. A sleep that heals, that restores, that allows you to greet a new day, fresh and changed. A gift he spent 1 trillion years longing for.